Okay, and we are now recording. Welcome to our session. I believe it's called At the Helm, and it's how to increase your instructor presence in your course, in an online course. My name is Lauren Woodman. I'm one of the managers of instructional design in online learning and educational technology. And I'm presenting with Allison, and I'll let Allison introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Allison Krawchuk, and I am the interim assistant dean in the Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, and I also teach a couple classes as well.
And congratulations to Allison on her new title. I knew I wouldn't get that right, so I let her go ahead and and say that herself. So our session is going to start with a little game. So I'll tease that and we'll move on to that shortly. And then we will talk through some strategies and ideas on instructor presence. We're pretty informal, so if you have a question, please feel free to type it in the chat or unmute yourself, but there will be time for questions at the end also. All right, so we are going to play a game, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with Mad Libs, but Mad Libs are a really fun game and kind of silly, and we're just going to set the stage and get you thinking a little bit about what instructor presence looks like, especially from a student perspective. So I am going to pop this link into the chat. And also you can scan the QR code, but we're going to break you out into breakout groups to do this. So you're going to do it with your group. Every single person doesn't need to fill out their own, but I want to make sure you have this link before we get started with that. So I put the link in the chat, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. And I'll put these in the breakout groups also. I want to make sure you all have it. And it looks like there are actually 36 of you on now. So we're going to break you into probably about 5 groups. And you'll have about 7 minutes or so to fill out the Mad Lib and read it. Remember what it says. You can cut and paste it if you don't on your computer. We're going to come back and debrief, talk about it, maybe share a few of them. So be ready to share what your Mad Lib says, and then we'll get started on the presentation. All right, so I'm breaking you into rooms now, and like I said, you'll have about 7 minutes. And if you're still here with us, you might have seen a message on your computer asking you to join your breakout room, so you can go ahead and join that.
All right, I think that we are all back because we're up at about 45 and a few more people had joined as you all got into your breakout groups. I hope that you thought it was fun, and for those of you that grew up with Mad Libs, that it kind of gave you a nice little flashback to fun times. But we'd like to hear some fun ones. So if there are any groups that would like to share their Mad Lib and anything that resonated with you as you were filling that out, we'll be happy to take some volunteers.
I'll share.
Oh, thank you, Sonia.
You're welcome. Okay, so zoinks. It is my first day of my online class, and I don't know who my instructor is. I guess I could look at my umbrella or maybe check Bernedoodle. I know they sent me a drugged email with wonderful information with important dates highlighted in fuchsia, but I get crunchily confused and overwhelmed. Maybe they are a robot and just gallop me automated emails, or they are extra lexical and I need a special code like 42 to see them or hear from them. Will they be bouncy or will they be surreal? Will they respond to my stapler or will I hear Christmas trees? I guess I will just have to open this suburban email and see. Wow, their name is Mariella.
Aw,
cute.
So fun. Any of that resonate as you were reading through it and probably laughing about, maybe some confusion you may have had as a student at one time, or what your students might be feeling?
Don't highlight in fuchsia.
Yes, and unfortunately, I've seen that. I've unfortunately seen highlighting in red, which is close to fuchsia. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Love it, love it, love it. Anyone else like to share?
I'm sorry. For me, it was so fun because it only takes a minor prompt for me to activate my inner child. And this was perfect. It was such a nice break from all the serious things we do. And you can see the benefit that would have in a class because students need that just as much as we do.
It was really easy to do, I promise. So Lauren and I tag teamed. I wrote the paragraph and then she was able to figure out how to get into the Mad Libs thing. So really easy to do. So you can reach out to Lauren or myself if you want to implement that in your class.
I'd actually like that, I think.
I think as far as the paragraph itself, it's of the utmost importance that our students never have to wonder who their instructor is.
Yeah.
Yes, and that is what we're going to talk about today. We'll take one more example and then we're going to jump in. Oh, Eric, are you hand raising?
Yeah, because ours was good. Here's the problem. I get way too excited about these because this was like my thing when I was a kid. I had so many of these books at my house that it probably drove my parents crazy because I would always be going around asking them for adverbs. All right. So this is ours. Woot. It is my first day of my online class and I don't know who my instructor is. I guess I could look at my dog or maybe check cigar. I know they sent me a happy email with wonderful information with important dates highlighted in green, but I get questioningly confused and overwhelmed. Maybe they are just a robot and punch me with automatic emails, or they are woeful and I need a special code like 27 to see them or hear from them. Will they be moist or will they be long? Will they respond to my hockey stick or will I hear quokka? I guess I will just have to open this belligerent email and see. Awesome. Their name is Patrick Grubbs.
Oh, that was fantastic.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Oh, that's so fun.
Thank you so much for sharing. And if we have time at the end, we want to listen to some more, but we definitely want to jump in. And again, we wanted to have fun at the beginning and have a good laugh. However, there are some students that have no idea who their instructor is. And so we really want to make sure that we have an online presence. And so that is what we're going to talk about for the rest of the session. And I'm going to hand the mic back over to Lauren.
Thank you, Allison. So we're going to start by talking about navigation and course organization, which might not be the first thing that comes to mind when you're thinking instructor presence, but your presence in how you arrange your course and communicate the layout of that to your students matters. So we're going to talk a little bit about how that can contribute to your presence in the course. So it's important to have a plan for how your course will be organized. Will you use weekly folders or will the content be organized by chapter? When the students complete their assignments, where in the course will they go to do that? You might think that the organization of your course has nothing to do with instructor presence, but your course design is one of the first impressions that you make to students. So think about it. If you teach face-to-face, on day one, you might greet the students as they enter, distribute a syllabus, and explain to them how the course will work. You'll set expectations, and maybe you'll lecture or engage students in a discussion or activity. This is the organization of your face-to-face course. That's the flow. So how does your online course flow? Online, you might plan many of the same activities, but it's going to look different, and you're going to use different tools. So having a clear organization to your course, including how students should get started and what the expectations are, will help them acclimate to you and your teaching style. A common concern from students is that they don't know how to get started. They don't understand how the course works or what's expected of them. Good course design, organization, and planning can help address these concerns. When we talk about course planning and organization, it's something that's best conceived before the course starts. While you may not have all of the content for all 15 weeks in Blackboard on day one, you should know what the layout will be and where you'll be putting future content and assignments. And I really recommend that you set up your course as far in advance as is feasibly possible. Otherwise, you could end up building the airplane while you're flying it, which can lead to added stress and confusion and disorganization.
Okay, so where do we want to start? If I was a student, I'm trying to think logically, right? If I'm a student, I'm in Blackboard and all of a sudden I'm frozen, like I have no idea what to do. And I'm just looking like, where do I start? I might look on the left-hand side of that column and see instructor information. Ah, maybe they can help me. So when I click on that link, this is a fantastic example of what your instructor information should look like. So thank you, Dr. Harris, for letting us beg, borrow, and steal yours. I was helping him with this course last semester, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is definitely how it should look. There's a picture of him, his information on contact, and then a little bit about him. So again, he's not that robot. He's a real person. So this is what good looks like. Actually, this is what great looks like. Let's look at what bad looks like. Yeah, please, please, please don't do this. I've seen this on a few courses that I've looked in, that it's completely empty. I mean, having your name and your email and contact information is better, but really having some more information about who are you? What are you like? What are your other things that maybe that you teach is really going to be the best case scenario. So really, really make sure that that info for instructor tab is completed and don't leave it like this. Something else that you can do is do a navigation video. So we're just going to watch like a couple of minutes of mine. I try to keep it under 10 minutes. I'm pretty specific. Every Blackboard, every instructor is different. So they're going to set up their Blackboard differently, even though we're trying to like be consistent, be organized, but be consistent in your own. So I do a video and I go through Blackboard so that they know how my class is going to be run. And so I do try to do a generic one, because I did take the class, like make everything generic so you can be efficient and use it every semester, and blasted if last semester I said fall. So I had to do another one, and I'm pretty sure I caught myself saying spring or a due date, so I'm gonna have to do it again, but that's okay. I might change some things in my Blackboard. So anyway, I'm not even on here, you can't even see me, but you can hear my voice, and I'm just taking them through the course as, again, what I think might be a logical way to navigate, and then specifically landing on learning content. But anyway, we're just gonna watch like a minute of it just so you can see. It's pretty informal. And again, I'm just sharing my screen. So Lauren's going to share that as well.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Introduction to Communication. My name is Allison Krawchuk, and I'll be your instructor. You can call me Professor K. This video is a tool to help you navigate through Blackboard in my course. When you first enter into the course, more than likely you're going to land on the announcements page. The announcements page is very important. There's going to be announcements from the school, but more specifically, announcements for the class. Every Monday, I will send a Monday memo. It not only will go to your email, but will also be in the announcement area. This is going to give you some reminders on what is due for the week. It will also summarize the key concepts from the week before. Please, please, please make sure that you open those announcements and read them, because sometimes I might be sending some extra credit opportunities. So what you should expect in the first week and then every Monday after is a Monday memo. Again, read through carefully. Sometimes they're long, sometimes they're short, but they will remind you on what is due. So going along here on the toolbar on the left-hand side, we were just at announcements. Now we're going to click on calendar. Calendar is a bird's eye view of what is due throughout the semester. Don't just rely on this. You want to make sure you're in Blackboard and you know what those assignments are. As you can see, and I'll actually click over to February. So
all right, so in the interest of time, you've seen a little bit how Allison will go through sort of each aspect of her course. All of these links will be provided in the presentation will be provided, as well as some information about how you can create this.
So there was a question about what did I use to record this? I just used Zoom and then I uploaded it to YouTube. But you can use Flipgrid Shorts as well. The max you have on that is 10 minutes, and I've done that before as well. And it was really, really easy to do. Took me like 10 times as a start because I kept forgetting my name or my whatever I was doing. It's always hard at the beginning, and then once you start going through it, it's pretty easy. The next thing is you don't want your students to have this face. right? When they get into your Blackboard and they're like, what am I supposed to do, right? So there's so many ways to communicate with your students. And we would recommend, number one, like just make sure you have a consistent communication plan and you stick to it. So whatever you decide to do and the different ways you decide to communicate, stick to that the entire semester. Don't all of a sudden in the middle of the semester bring in something new like a Remind app. Introduce it at the beginning and then stick to it for the rest of the time. So one of the ways that we can communicate, and you can go to the next slide, is a welcome email. So this is something that I send out a week before classes start. Now we all know rosters change between a week before and the day of. So I print my roster and then I check it every day. And if there's a new student, I actually write it on the original roster. So then I know I need to send them the welcome email. So I really try to catch everyone. Yes, it's a little extra work, but it's better than the day of, I didn't get this email, I didn't get this, I didn't get this, I didn't get that. So sending this out a week before and just trying to stay on top of it. And I always make sure I give them the Blackboard help, which is always posted on NCC website. But this is really great just to make sure that they know that they have help outside of me, that they need a book if you require a book, and just like the basics in starting the class. I also tend to send the, I believe I send the navigation email video with this as well. And then I also post it in Blackboard. So they have all of that at the very, very beginning. Another way to communicate, as I said in the video, is the Monday memo. And so I really try, and I'd say like 80% of the time, I have this ready on Friday and I do a date, restricted date, and it gets sent out on Blackboard on first thing Monday morning. Because I've been doing this for so many semesters, I just go back to the semester before or the spring before, look at that Monday memo, copy, paste, change the dates, re-up, change any threads like from the discussion boards that might be different. But again, being efficient and consistent, I think is the plan here. And then let's see the next one. Again, so just using announcements. So I really try to not inundate them with announcements. They always get a Monday memo, which is an email, and it also gets sent through announcements. And then I might, if anything, would send one more, if that, and that might be events on campus, any type of changes, or an extra credit, specific extra credit announcement. But I never send more than two, and it's usually just one. I'd say maybe like once a month, they might get a second announcement depending on what's going on. But it's just a great way to communicate with them. And I've actually had students respond, believe it or not, to the email, and I was like, thank you. And I'm like, oh, you read it? I'm so happy. It's just one. I'm happy that someone's reading it. But it's just a great way to get that mass information out there in a very easy way, in a controlled way. I always say control what you can control, because the crazy is going to happen. And the last thing is something to put in your Monday memo is something that I actually got from Lauren, is when you're, and this probably might be a little bit also under grading, looking at the discussion boards, if you have a lot of asynchronous classes. So for example, I had 9 asynchronous classes in the fall. I cannot respond to every discussion post because I would still be responding to discussion posts. But taking a quote from somebody's discussion from that week and putting it in your Monday memo and highlighting it and just putting like, this was by this person. Number one, they know you're reading them. Number two, they know that what they write matters. And number 3, they have a voice. And so switching it up, and maybe they're like, oh, I mean, I know they probably won't say this out loud, but deep down, they all want to have their discussion be the quote. So just another idea to put in there as well, because then it kind of wraps it all up. Again, trying to be as efficient as you can with the time that you have.
All right, so as Allison mentioned, there are many ways to communicate with your students. I often hear from both faculty and students that there are so many different communication methods, tools, and paths to communication that can seem overwhelming or scattered. I personally recommend choosing 1 or 2 main methods of communication in your course and keeping it consistent throughout the semester. So if you are using announcements, then it's always announcements. That's how students can expect to receive updates from you. If you use another tool, then maybe it's remind, then it's always remind. And communicating on the same day of the week or the same point in the learning unit will also help students know what to expect. So as Allison mentioned, that Monday memo always comes on Monday. They know that's when they can expect communication. Instructors can often find that there's a tremendous amount of work associated with communicating with students individually, especially in the online classroom setting. So if you look at the content of the communication, you usually have two different kinds, right? You have individualized information for specific students. Sometimes that might be missing assignments or grades. And that is stuff that's best sent individually on a one-on-one basis. Things like reminders about upcoming due dates and explanations of assignments are things that can be sent in bulk. There are some tools built right into Blackboard to allow you to accomplish each of these different modes of communication quickly and seamlessly. So announcements that are posted in Blackboard can be emailed to all students. Then they have a copy of the message in their email and a copy in the course. If they are using the Blackboard app, they also see that in their app. So you only sent the message once, but they got it on a lot of different streams. Emails can also be sent directly through Blackboard. Just keep in mind that Blackboard does not save a copy of the emails that you send. So you either need to copy yourself on that email or just email students directly from Outlook. For more individualized feedback, let's say some students have forgotten to turn in an assignment, or the assignment is due tomorrow and you notice you don't have submissions from a few students. You can go into the Grade Center in Blackboard, click the drop-down arrow next to a Grade Center column, and click Send Reminder. And that will send an automated reminder for that assignment to any students who don't have a submission or an inputted grade. So this saves you time in emailing each student individually. Oh, remember, you have to turn that in tomorrow. And it can save you time in that way. So we've discussed ways to connect with your students, like sharing your contact information and methods for communication. But how do they get to know the real you, that you are a real person and not just a robot? So in this section, we'll talk a little bit about how to let your personality shine in an online setting, which is, your instructor voice in your class, and how to be present yet remain efficient. I want to start off by sharing this anecdote. So this is Professor Rick Jackson. Some of you might know Rick. He teaches forensic science, which used to be at the Monroe campus, but Rick took the online teaching training we offered last summer, and he now teaches the course fully online. We don't have the time for me to play this clip, but one of Rick's greatest strengths as an online instructor is his humor and his storytelling in lectures. He is a very funny guy. He has been doing this for decades, and he has an anecdote for everything. So Rick came into the training really dedicated to learning how to create his own lecture videos and how to learn Echo 360 so that he could do that. And he wanted to give students that feeling of being right back in the classroom with him. So this is his setup. So a lot of times when we think about maybe making instructor videos, we think like, oh, a screen recording, right? And you can or can't share your video depending on what you want to do. So Rick actually wanted to use a whiteboard, like drawing on the board in class. And it's hard to see in this clip, but the actual video full screen is very easy to read. And he didn't have any special equipment to do that. He just used the camera on his computer. And using this method allows Rick to draw soil diagrams and explain them. I don't know if you can read it, but that top soil layer actually says "this year's dead things," which I think is just hysterical. And he tells plenty of jokes along the way. So this is a great example of not losing your personality as an instructor when you transition to an online format. A screen recording of Rick reading a PowerPoint about this would not do him any justice, but this setup allows his students to get a feel for who he really is. It breaks down that barrier of the robot instructor and makes him more approachable. So suddenly emailing your instructor doesn't seem so scary. So as you guys know, I work in online learning and ed tech, and we work with faculty and students. And students often end up in our office for a simple reason. They are unsure how to reach their instructor or afraid to reach out to their instructor. Some students are even surprised to know that it's okay to email their instructor, and that if a phone number is listed in the course, it's okay to call it. Students struggling in the classroom are often afraid to raise their hand or reach out to ask a question, and that fear can be magnified by the physical distance of an online course. So we've discussed ways to show students that you're approachable by letting students see your personality and, of course, sharing your contact information and bio. When communicating with students, especially through written mediums, try to use language that's open and invites discourse. So we don't like when students respond with one-word answers, and we should model the behavior we want to see from them. Just as we want to see appropriate email communication from students, it's important to respond back to them in a way that's friendly and inviting. Because I've seen students who think their instructor is angry with them because they only replied with a one-word answer. We all know, like, we're very, very busy, but taking the time to write a more detailed response or even adding an emoji or Bitmoji to your communication can help students feel more at ease. Oh, I think you're still muted, Allison.
I am. My little box just popped up. Thank you. So communication and really making sure that you're being authentic and you're being efficient in responding. I know that at least when I email somebody with a question that is important to me, that's my perspective, I want a timely response. And the students want the same thing. And I know that we all have other things to do, and some of us are, might be adjuncts and have full-time jobs as well. And it is really hard to stay on top of those emails. So I have this kind of life rule, and I call it Ohio, and it is not the state. It is only handle it once. And I do have Outlook on my phone because when I first started, I was an adjunct, I had a full-time job, and I traveled for my job. So I didn't think it was fair for students to wait for me, to get, off the airplane and in a hotel to respond to email. So I would have it. So only handle it once. When I open an email, I either respond to it immediately because I have the answer right away and I can do that. Sometimes you need your computer. I will still respond to that person and say, you know what, I am not 100%. I want to double check. Can you give me 4 hours or can you give me till tomorrow morning and I'll have the answer for you, right? So you're responding. Or if it's spam, delete it. Doesn't need to go to somebody else. Then you forward it, but only handle it once. I do this with regular mail as well. And I do it with things on my on my desk. Only handle it once. So it helps you just be a little bit more efficient and getting back to those students so that at least they know that you read their email and they're not waiting 48 hours, that you're just at least responding, hey, I heard you, I saw your email, I'll get back to you. And if just to keep you organized, you can flag it in your emails just so then you can look at your flags to see what you haven't, because that happens to me a lot. I open something on my phone and then does not that it goes away, but it's not prominent. So I always flag it if I need to follow up. Again, we talked a little bit about discussion board already, and that I don't respond to the discussion board, but when I do grade it, I have a rubric and I will do some follow-up there. But then again, also culminating the threads or things that kind of bubbled up to the top, I'll put that in the Monday memo. And then I'm now going to do this quote, which I think is a fantastic idea. So those are definitely ways in how to communicate with your students. This is another one, again, to show authenticity. So I love Flipgrid, and if you've ever been on any of the Flipgrid trainings, it's me, and I get like I nerd out about it. And so this is a real quick clip. This is a response. So for Flipgrid, I interchange them. So every other week I had discussion board. In between I have Flipgrid. 2 minutes tops, informal. They answer the question. I did respond to all of the videos, kind of on a Friday is when I was doing them. So this is a response to a student. The topic was about conflict. So this just kind of shows you that Again, I'm not using one-word answers. I'm trying to be authentic and also empathize, right? We want to make sure that they understand like we're humans too, and we feel what they feel sometimes. So I think we might have I think it's just like a minute and a half. We can watch that.
Hey, Gabriel, I would love to give you the news that that conflict that you have with your parents goes away as you get older, but they will still want to know your business even when you're in your 40s. So my mother was here visiting, and I'm in the middle of purchasing this house, which is my grandparents' house, and we're redoing the kitchen and things like that. And my dad's like every day, he's like, measure this, measure this, measure this, like, what's this? And I was getting really stressed out. So my mom actually told him not to contact me for an entire week and ask me anything about measuring anything. And he listened. So I got a 1 week break, 1 week reprieve from my dad trying to get in my business, but it doesn't go away. I think, though, that you do have a healthy attitude towards confrontation. Like, no one wants to look for it, but when it does come up, we have to deal with it.
So again, I really respond to how I'm feeling on how they respond. And I think at the beginning of the semester, they were like, we have to do these videos, but by the end, in my final words, they actually had to do video responses and final words, and they really enjoyed it because they got to know each other. They got to know me, I got to know them. And again, it was just a great, like, I'm not a robot kind of thing. So just wanted to share that with you all. And then, so next is grading. So this is what we don't want to be looking, we talked about what we don't want students to look like. We don't want to look like this when it comes to grading, and it's super, super crazy. So just again, trying to be smart about grading with Flipgrid, with Flipgrid and discussion board, rubrics. Use the rubrics. They are there for you if you need help on how to embed them. They are there and putting them in your grading forums. You need to make sure that you give expectations of students of what's to be graded. So in my syllabus, I have a list of everything that's graded. And then I also have, every week and bullet points. And so when they open up the learning content, those folders mimic the syllabus. So when they see bullet points of what's due, that's exactly what they see on the outside of the folder. So for week 1, it'll have quiz, what to read, and what their Flipgrid. Then they click on the folder, and all of that stuff is in the folder. So again, consistency is really going to help, and then they know what's expected of them, of what's being graded. And the rubrics are great because if they can view the rubric and they can see exactly what you're looking for. If a student submits the wrong assignment or a file type, reach out to them ASAP, not just in the feedback, the comments, because students aren't always aware of where they can find their feedback. So in my navigation video, I show them where they can see their grades and how they can find my feedback. But again, I get a lot of like dot pages or shared Google Docs, and I can't grade those, and I won't. And so I put it in their feedback, but I know that they don't look at that. So then I follow up immediately with an email. I don't wait till later. I'm like, I'm on it right now. And I will email them and let them know that I need them to resubmit. Giving feedback to help them know what they did right and what they need to improve on. Tell students where they can find that feedback. They want it. They are yearning for this feedback. I promise you that. I've gotten that before. It's like, oh, I would like even more feedback. I'm like, and they didn't know that I had this feedback in the rubrics. And so I think that that's really important. And Lauren's going to talk about how to do when you have a writing intensive class, or you have a lot of just written assignments, how you can do the grading there without having to print out their papers and scan them. So magic, Lauren.
So I'm going to show a brief video about the Annotate. It used to be called inline grading. The name has changed a few times. It's the same tool, but new and improved. If students are submitting their papers online, how can you provide them with adequate feedback? So in the classroom, you might mark up the papers, put lots of comments in the margins, and then hand them back to students. Using this annotated grading option in Blackboard can allow you to mark up students' papers and provide those comments and inline feedback. So I'm going to show a short video, it's like 2 minutes, on how that works. And then I will talk about some other grading options in Blackboard as well.
You can use BB Annotate in both the original and Ultra Course view to provide customizable feedback to students. Let's take a look. Supported file types open right in the browser. Be sure to check out the help site for the complete list of supported file types. First, let's take a look at the document view and navigation options. From the sidebar menu, you can view thumbnail images of all the pages in the document and view all the annotations you've added. You can also use the arrows to navigate the pages in the document and use the pan, zoom, and fit options to customize your view. Next, let's take a look at the Annotation Tools. The drawing and brush tools allow you to draw freehand on the submission with various colors, thickness, and opacity. Use the eraser to remove parts of a drawing. Use the image tool to add an image from your computer, and use the stamp tool to add a preloaded stamp or create your own. Use the text tool to add text directly on the submission. You can format your text and move the text box around on the page. Use the Shapes tool to add various shapes to the document. Now, let's take a look at the Comment tool. You can provide feedback in the form of comments that appear in a panel next to the submission. Select the comment icon, select where you want to add it, and then type your comment. You can also select specific portions of the submission to highlight, strike through, and underline or squiggle underline the text. Or select the comment icon to highlight the text and add an associated comment. You can print or download the submission with the annotations and search the submission for specific text. And finally, if you're using the SaaS deployment of Blackboard Learn, you can access the content library to add a comment to the submission from your bank of reusable comments. You can also edit, delete, or add to your bank from here as well.
So I saw some notes in the chat about feedback banks, and you can see that's a new tool that's built into Blackboard as well. So if you have comments there, you can pull the comments over. If you have the same comments, missed a comma, you can just pull those over. I also saw Karen asked about using a Wacom drawing board. Since it's an input, Karen, it should work for anything that a mouse would work for. So I would imagine so as far as circling and marking up, but you might have to test that. And some people aren't going to love using annotated grading. I will say this did update in the fall. So if you haven't used it since then, definitely give it another try. But yeah, you can always download it, download each individual submission, mark it up. That is a little bit more work on the instructor though. And I do see there are some other longer comments that we can address at the end. I'm just trying to fit them in where they make sense. Oh. Okay, so another grading option in Blackboard is this audio and video feedback. And I just have a couple quick screenshots for this. I don't have time to show you kind of how you would go about doing that, but there is a great article from Blackboard on it. Basically, when you go in to add your grade, there is a feedback box. At the bottom of that box, you have what looks like a little A, and that is your content editor, text editor box. If you open that, it opens your large content editor that you're used to with all of your text formatting options and the ability to add different types of media. One of those is to insert media from audio or video. When you do that, it will launch a video recorder that looks very similar to Blackboard Collaborate Ultra if you're used to that. And you can choose just audio or turn on your camera for video and audio feedback and include that with any other text comments you have and the grade. So when students go in to check their grade, they'll see, both their score, they'll see, anything that they turned in related to it. They will see feedback, but they'll also see this video link and that they can click on to view your video or audio. And I don't have time to show this video. So I just have a screenshot here. So this is viewing rubric feedback. A lot of students don't know how they can do that. And as Allison mentioned, it's a great tool for really helping students know what it is they missed out on. And if they go into their submission, either through the gradebook, under My Grades, they click on their score, and it will open up their paper submission or whatever it was, or they can go back into where they submitted the submission. And, oh, sorry about that. And they can then click on this little box. It looks like a table that launches the rubric and any feedback you've put into it. So if you are using a rubric with feedback, be sure to tell students to click on that box when they get into the submission to see the rubric feedback. So this is just a quick overview of some tools that we have talked about. Some we have not yet, that can help increase instructor presence in your course. So Echo 360 for recording video lectures, Flipgrid both as a discussion tool for students, and to use the educator shorts to create short videos yourself. Bitmoji, if you noticed, Allison and I were featured heavily in Bitmoji form in this presentation. And I put Doodle here as well. So I know Allie had a question about getting students to come to office hours. And I find it's really helpful to allow students to schedule time that works well for them and their schedule. So let's say you always have office hours Tuesday at 1. If a student works Tuesday at 1, they're not going to be able to come, and they might not feel comfortable, emailing and saying, I need a different time. Doodle has a meeting scheduler. Many of you, I think, have used that to schedule time with me. And I know Allison uses it as well. It connects to your calendar, so you can mark out times where you want to be available for potential meetings, provide that link, and then students can schedule time with you within those allotted times that you've suggested. It automatically goes to your calendar and to their calendar, and it can avoid that back and forth of scheduling a meeting. And it can also make it a little bit easier. They don't have to go through the process of asking and potentially saying no. They click on the link, they schedule a meeting, boom, now they're ready to meet with you. Obviously, Blackboard, everybody here is using Blackboard. It's great, it's wonderful, it's your friend. Blackboard Collaborate Ultra and Zoom, both meeting softwares that you can use to meet with your course, with your class, either if it's an asynchronous course or blended, but also for office hours. The little green phone button is Google Voice. If you do not want to give your phone number out to students, then you can use Google Voice to set up a different phone number that's tied to your account. So it'll ring on your phone, but they don't see your actual phone number. It's also nice because you can set do not disturb on that, so you're not getting calls at 2 in the morning. And then Remind, which is a way to send mass messages via text to students. Oh, actually, I didn't scroll down far enough. So we have a poll for you. And we're going to go through this pretty quickly because I'm looking at the time and I want to leave some time for questions. So this poll, I believe, has 2 questions. So the first one is, if you've used any of these tools, please select your favorite, not Blackboard, it's not on the list. And the second question is, which tool have you not used yet, but you want to implement? And you can select multiple for both of these. Okay, I see we're getting some responses in. I'm going for a 50% response rate. We're almost there. All right, I am going to stop this poll again, just in the interest of time. And I'm going to share those results. So if you can see these, you see the favorite tool among everyone by a pretty good landslide is Zoom. I agree, I love Zoom. And then which tool have you not used yet, but you want to implement? Doodle looks like has won that one. So that's exciting. I'll be sure to share some information about that with all of you. If you are interested, you can, of course, reach out to me directly, and there'll be a link in the presentation as well. So once those slides are shared, you can get to it from there. Okay.
Okay, so we hope that we gave you a little bit of peace of mind and you're feeling a little zen. We're going to give you a few tips to finish out. So if you want to go to the next slide, some of the tips. So get to know your students. You know, even in online discussion, use Flipgrid, really puts that face to a name, but get to know your students. Be understanding, be responsive, be that lifeline, right? So the first time they're going to have a question, they're going to want to probably reach out to you. So make sure that contact info is there and everywhere. I have my syllabus, I think, in 4 places, and also like Zoom links and just everything there so that they can't say they can't find it. As much as we love the Wizard of Oz, don't be the Wizard of Oz. Don't be behind the curtain. Come out from behind the curtain, all right? Be prepared, have a plan, take pressure off yourself. Remember, control what you can control, right? Because the crazy is gonna happen. And then if you have blended or live meetings, like remind them, students, what to do that week on Blackboard. Be authentically you, whomever that is. That's why we love you, and that's why you're here, and that's why the students love you. So show yourself, be you. Any questions? And I just want to say, Lauren and I might have had more fun with the Bitmojis than the whole entire presentation. So we really got super excited about our Bitmojis. And I have them in every single Monday memo. I have a Bitmoji of me doing something.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sure, go ahead, Doll.
Okay. Is Blackboard Collaborate going to be updated so that we can see more than 4 people at a, or 5 people at a time? Or is that something the individual, you know, our IT department or whatever could even do?
I believe that was updated. It is still not as many as Zoom, but it's no longer 4, and I want to say it's closer to 10. But if you email Elaine Vasco, she gets all of the Blackboard updates, and she also has the roadmap, so things that haven't been released yet, but when they will be released. But Collaborate Ultra is continually updating. So she can provide you with the most up-to-date updates, and she can also like give you a quick tutorial of what's changed.
Okay. And also, mainly because of that sort of problem, I'm wanting to switch to Zoom this semester, but I have never held a Zoom session myself. And so who could help me get up to speed on that? Not right now, but I mean in the future.
Reach out to me. We'll set up some time and we'll just
Okay.
do a little Zoom training. We can do it in probably 10, 15 minutes. Super easy.
Okay. And then one more question or dilemma and question. So last semester, well, you know, we were kind of discouraged from requiring students to turn their cameras on. And man, that became so frustrating for me because in most of my classes, hardly anybody would turn their cameras on, like maybe only 1 or 2 people. And I felt like I was begging, and someone gave me probably some good advice the other day and said, don't, it was one of my faculty friends, it was Allison Carpenter. She said, don't beg them, but rather just thank the ones that do. Of course, I did that also, but I guess I'll try to stop begging. But I honestly feel that it's very difficult to get to know our students if we don't even know what they look like. You know, if all we have is a name and the work they submit, and especially those that don't, you know, respond to emails, that don't ever say anything. I mean, I'm just quite frustrated with that. So could you help me with that?
So just about the camera thing, that has been a pain point for many, many people. We've gotten a lot of that feedback. And I think that number one, you know, we can't mandate it, right? But establishing
why can't we mandate it? Because I know that some people last semester mandated it.
There's privacy issues that people may not want you to see or other people to see their home. However, what you just said to us, you need to say to your students, I want to get to know you. I want you to get to know each other, because that, when I heard that, I was like, she's setting up the expectations. So do that, but then also, and I have this in my syllabus because I'm teaching blended for the first time this semester. Mine were all async last semester. It's why I used Flipgrid so I could get to know them. It's in my syllabus what I expect, and then I expect cameras to be on. And if they cannot, that they need to let me know why their camera is off or why they need to step away. So at least I know what's going on. So that is what
Okay,
I'm trying.
so
There's
you
not a magic
basically,
bullet.
I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but I'm really sorry about that. But so you basically do require it, except you allow some exceptions.
I'm asking, like, please have your camera on. This is a class just like you would come in person.
Right.
Please dress in the way that you would, what you'd wear to class. And if you cannot use your camera, but I'm not giving them consequences. Like, if you don't have your camera on, you're not getting points. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you will have your camera on, and if you cannot, you need to notify me.
Okay.
I'll let you know if it works.
Okay. Thanks.
I've loved seeing the attendance questions and the around the Zoom. Those are ways that keep students engaged, even if they're not, even if they've put a funny picture up. I know that they have to be ready to answer. I've seen that with other faculty teaching, and I thought both those ideas are really good.
Yeah, those are really great.
Yeah, well, if I could add one more thing, sorry. So yeah, I've been reading. I mean, I participate in one of the national, chat room kind of dilly things, and so one of the suggestions was, call on students. Well, I don't, in my face-to-face, pre-pandemic world, I really didn't do that except on very rare occasions, but I was thinking about doing that this time and telling them, in advance, because of this online environment, I will be calling on you. Well, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday. Oh, it's Renee. Here she is. And she said, oh, don't do that. They hate that. And I said, well, I don't care. So, I mean, what do you think of that? I mean, I wouldn't like it as a student either, but I know that, and I mean, another way, I guess, is to do polls because, and to warn them in advance, I'm going to have some, and Randy does this a lot, I think. I'm going to have some polls during the period. But, I had students who they would turn on their thing. And then at the end of class, they were technically still in my class, but I'd come back half an hour later and they'd still be there. So clearly they left their desk, and who knows how much they did or did not get out of the class. Okay, I'll shut up now. Sorry.
And so again, this is a pain point that we've heard a lot of feedback on. I'm going to do some breakout rooms. They have a group activity almost every single time, and even if it's just 5 minutes, and then I'm going to jump in so I can hear and see. But again, and maybe just reaching out to that person and saying, I noticed that you were still on after I left. Like, can you tell me what happened? So calling them out in a private way, in an email so that they know that it's just hard. We're all going to have to kind of have these recommendations. There's some really, really good ones that I've heard, on here, the virtual background, if they don't like the background, and the polls, starting off, but we will always have the students that are going to put their screen up and walk away.
There was a conference I went to over the summer where one of the presenters just said not to worry about it, that there is a limited amount of energy you can put into this. And I've got 100+ students. If I can take attendance, I absolutely will take attendance, but I absolutely cannot focus on teaching and keeping track of who is being active and who might have wandered off because they have a sick kid, or who might have wandered off because I had a student fall asleep on camera last semester. So for that student, off camera would have been better. There's only so much we can do. And I'm thinking of doing a Greek chorus, is what in my head I'm calling it. I'm not going to call it that to them. But where each week I'll have 3 or 4 people identified, and it'll rotate through. And they get extra credit points if they ask questions and are on camera, maybe not camera, but audio. If they ask questions, they'll be the crew that I teach to, is how I'm thinking of it. Instead of having to keep track of 27 each class, I'll only have to keep track of 3 or 5. So anybody who sees a huge problem with that, let me know.
I know we are over time, and I did see a couple of questions in the chat that I promised people I'd respond to. So I just wanted to address those quickly. I know Allie had a question about kind of course organization as far as where to put graded materials versus content. And I'll address it briefly. If any of you have questions about course design, you're welcome to schedule a meeting with me, a one-on-one. but the idea of learning content, especially in an online course, is that everything a student has to do for a unit or a week should be in one place. So if you are telling students, you know, for week 1, you have to read, you have to do this, watch this video, oh, and here's an assignment that you have to turn in, or here's a test, they should either have all of that in that folder or a link to it in that folder. So if you want to separate out what is graded from what is not, you could put that in a checklist at the top. You could even mark it next to the item. So test 1 graded, assignment 1 graded, so that they know the difference between, like, these are assignments that are for grade, this might just be a rough draft. But it should kind of be in one place for them so they don't have to go looking for it in multiple. And Leanne had mentioned that the font size in Blackboard seems tiny. It does seem tiny. It is 12-point font. I find myself zooming in and putting on my glasses more and more and more. But you can change that to make the size larger if you find it is too small for you or for your students.
Yeah, Anna Maria just sent the email about, can you have the same link for each week for the blended class? So I use the same link. And I just make sure that, you know, obviously I have nothing else scheduled because I'm teaching it, but it's the same link, and I have it posted at the very, very top of the learning content. So as soon as they open it, it's at the very, very top. And you can also put it, you know, other places as well, but that's probably a good place to have it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So many awesome suggestions in the chat boxes, you all. So I hope that you all been reading through them, and sounds like it's generated a lot of thinking and you know, thinking about how we can do things better and what works and what hasn't been working. So please don't hesitate to reach out to Lauren or myself if you need some additional guidance on things. Doll, don't forget to reach out to me and I'll help you with Zoom. And but we thank you all so very, very much, and have a fantastic semester. And just know your resources. We're here for you.
Yeah. And if you have questions, I know, Allie, you might have a few more questions and you want to stay on. I can stay on to help answer questions, but I'm going to stop the presentation now.
Thank you.
Lauren, I have a question.